All righty, good morning to you. It's about 3 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock. This is 93.1 and the Mighty 1190. Hope y'all are having a nice morning so far. Welcome back into the Breakfast Club, and our Congressman Robert Pittenger joins us this morning. Has been gracious enough several times to come talk with us on the air, and anytime we couldn't get you in the studio, you've always talked to us on the phone, so we appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you.
We take your time. We take your time and run your phone bill up.
Yes, sir.
Are you glad the election's over?
Yes, sir. Always glad to see elections in, but they ended very well this time.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for where the country's headed. We're going to have a wonderful swearing-in ceremony on Friday, and we have about 150 folks coming up from my district to join in that celebration.
I saw this morning where they said they were expecting 700,000 people.
Could be 900,000 or a million. Even.
That's crazy.
Isn't that great?
That is.
That's a huge number.
You know, Congressman, this is uncharted territory, though. This is a non-politician that's, you know, I'm about to be 60 and I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you know, I'm not saying all politicians are the same, but they all kind of speak the same kind of language. And here's a guy, and President-elect Trump, that doesn't. And a lot of this he's going to have to learn on the fly. You know, he tends to wear his heart on his sleeve, and he gets upset when people say something, you know, negative about him, and here comes a 2 a.m. tweet about it. And
isn't that refreshing that if somebody's so candid, so open and transparent, there's no games being played?
Yeah.
I love the guy. Yeah, you know, he's brashy. He's a New Yorker. Okay, let Trump be Trump. Frankly, that's why he was able to defeat Hillary Clinton.
You know, I think a lot of people are excited about the fact that here we're finally going to have someone that approaches running this country as a business.
Absolutely.
And he surrounded himself with a lot of great business minds. And, you know, even during the campaign, people said, I can't believe Trump said this or said that. And he said some things that we all kind of cringed about. But we all knew at the same time he was going to surround himself with good people.
Boy, the best. He's got absolutely the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you the thing that excites me the most, we meet with Mike Pence, the Vice President-elect, on a regular basis. And every single time the Vice President-elect comes to be with us, there's one word that stands out. It's called results.
Mm.
All they care about are results. They're not there to pontificate out on issues. What's going to be the best net result for the American people?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And they want to see results in health care. They want to see results in tax policy, fair tax code. They want to see results in securing the border. You know, all these things, they're going to see results. And that's the great thing about this presidency.
Let me ask you, you know, part of the reason that Trump was successful is he promised to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Yes, sir.
And for the 20 million or so that finally have health care that never had it, they think it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Well,
and I understand that.
Those are their numbers. The actual numbers, and that was only through a survey, the actual numbers are about 14 million.
Okay.
And most of those people would have already been accepted and approved on Medicaid.
Oh.
So there really wasn't a major uptick in people who gained health care as a result of Obamacare.
You know, it all comes down to your circumstances. For the people that don't qualify for a supplement, it's unbelievable. My health care is more than my house payment.
Yes, sir.
And I got a pretty nice house.
Sure.
So it's rough. We're told that it'll be repealed and immediately replaced. So everyone's scratching their head wanting to know what it's going to be. Trump said, I believe it was yesterday, he said he wanted health care for everyone. Devil's in the details. Paul Ryan's not talking. Are members of Congress being told anything? Are you given anything? You know, if you have, it's fine. If you can't talk about it, fine. I understand that. But is Congress being told anything about the replacement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because he's embraced our reforms.
Okay.
When he came to meet with us this summer the first time, when he walked in the room, we all stood out of just appreciation for the fact he was running and showed courtesy.
Yeah.
But after an hour being with him, and he embraced all of our reforms, healthcare reforms, tax reforms. He's not a guy who's in the weeds in terms of details. That's why he selected Tom Price, who was chairman of our budget committee, and then he wrote our healthcare law. He's the person who's going to direct Health and Human Services. He'll be the secretary.
Okay.
So he's embracing the bill that we wrote in the House.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a bill that's going to create open and competitive markets.
Okay.
That's what drives prices down.
Well, tell us about that bill.
Well, that bill will enable insurance companies to compete across state lines.
Well, yeah, bingo. We've been talking about that.
That's always been the biggest. I've said that forever, is just make it where they can compete with one another.
Yeah.
Make it portable. You can take it with you from business to business. But a real savings component is that you can join together, band together with other individuals or small businesses can join together.
Group policy.
Yeah.
Group policies. That's exactly right. Enormous savings there. There are cost efficient, market-driven solutions to delivering health care to the American people that will be cost-effective.
Well, everybody's insurance situation is different, but they all fall into one of a few categories, which is you work for yourself. If there were a group policy for self-employed people, it would be a huge savings. Or, my job what we do doesn't necessarily come with it, so we have to provide our own insurance. So it's I have a personal policy in North Carolina. I'm going to move back. If I ever move back to South Carolina where I'm from, I can't take it. I'm shopping again. I don't want to go on the exchange.
No, sir. We're going to have tax credits, too, for individuals. And they can take that tax credit, and they can use that. Businesses can write off the business expense. Why should individuals have the capacity to have a tax benefit?
Is there still talk of simplification of the tax code?
Oh, absolutely. That's the next thing on our agenda. We're going to do Obamacare first, but we want to have a simpler, fair tax code for everyone. And reduce the tax burden. Frankly, when you reduce the tax burden, you put money back in the hands of businesses, American people, the economy took off. We saw that with Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan came in, when he was elected, we had 20% interest rates, high inflation, high unemployment, with gas lines. Remember that era?
Oh, I do.
Well, he came in, what did Ronald Reagan do? He cut the tax code, he cut the regulatory burden, and boom, the economy took off. Mm-hmm. Within 2 years, we were creating 300,000 jobs, then 400,000 jobs, then 500,000 jobs. 1 month, 1 million jobs.
And the reason is because if people got it, they'll spend it. They can't spend it if they got it.
Unprecedented economic growth. Where have we been with the Obama economy, which has just absolutely been strangled with burdens and burdened with regulations and tax? Well, the high end of the Obama recovery has been about 190,000 jobs a month.
Yeah.
I mean, that's lower than the low end of the Reagan recovery.
Well, and
I think they quit counting people that stopped looking too. They changed the rules on how they reported it.
When we hear that
the real unemployment's about 12%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it when I'm given a number that's supposed to make
sense.
Supposed to sound impressive to me.
No.
When it doesn't count all the people.
Yeah, it's not even a real number.
Obamacare, they like to throw out that number of 20 million people that now have coverage. Obamacare left 28 million Americans uninsured.
Exactly.
Because they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're paying I'll just pay the penalty. Well, the penalties have gone up.
Excellent. Yeah. So premiums, so deductibles, everything has gone up. Most people now don't even go to the doctor for regular visits because they can't afford that.
Listen, it's become my primary care physician, as so many others, has had to affiliate themselves with the hospital now. They pretty much bought the practice.
Sure.
I can't see my doctor anymore. If I have a annual physical or something like that scheduled, sure. But if I get the flu, break my arm, he's not seeable. You can't see him. He's
you can
so busy.
in 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah, just the family doctor,
no
the whole family doctor thing is
time you see him, you're either dead or well.
Access is totally gone down.
When I go for my annual physical, he's going to say, "How's everything been?" I say, "It's too much. I don't even remember everything. Yeah. I've had this, I broke this, I did that. It's too much to try to." So it's always bothersome when you hear numbers that aren't realistic.
They play games with the numbers all the time.
Yep, they do. In response to a bipartisan request led by you and the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC has extended public comment period on the Chicago Stock Exchange after some pushback from you. Explain what that was about.
Well, China. This is a Chinese company that wants to buy the Chicago Stock Exchange. And imagine
Come on.
And so it's being reviewed by an entity called CFIUS.
Wait a minute. They're considering it.
Well, they approved it. Yes. This is under the Obama administration. he just turns a blind eye to these issues. So we went to the SEC. They also have to approve it, and they put the discovery period to review this over the Christmas break. And I said, there's no logic in that. It's not even reasonable. Extend the review period, which they've done. And I think we're going to get a clear perspective of the intent. The Chinese are not known to work on a fair playing field. There's no country in the world that's more complicit with cyber war. We believe there's around 300,000 people in China today that are actively engaged in cyber war, as well as currency manipulation and other ways that they seek to.
There are people that are concerned about how much they already own and how much of our debt that President Obama has grown belongs to the Chinese, and now they want to buy the stock exchange.
Yeah. Well, that's a foothold
into
into our economy, and we can't. That's not a prudent thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the expansion of Medicaid that Governor Cooper wants to do? Explain about
well, I put a letter together that had my colleagues co-signed with me, and the letter basically says he didn't have the constitutional right to do that, and he's going against the very law of North Carolina. He's sworn to uphold the laws of North Carolina. And
he didn't uphold them when he was Attorney General. He might as well not do it as governor.
Well, we're here to check him on it.
Good.
And to bring not just real attention to it, but to prevent this. Frankly, if it goes through, beginning 2020, it's going to cost North Carolina about $600 million a year. An extraordinary amount of money that is very difficult to cover in a where we run potential deficits. If we didn't have to, by law, cover deficits, but it's going to create a tax obligation and a new tax to pay for it.
Yeah.
So this is, again, how the Democrats operate. They're not fiscally sound.
Grow the government.
Well, what?
With no accountability. That's why we want to put Medicaid back in the hands of the state, give them a block grant so that they can manage their money. Right now, they get 2/3 of their money from D.C. The way the coverage is right now, it's 100%. It'll go down to 90% coverage by the federal government. And then that 10% amount is going to cost $600 million a year. The federal government's got to pay the rest of it. So look at the enormous.
Doesn't the block granting of it? When I first heard that, my first thought was the block granting of that. Also, not only does it money, but it simplifies it.
Sure,
it simplifies the heck out of the process for people that need it.
Well, you have to manage it.
Yeah, you have to manage it.
Here's your money, state.
Yeah,
you manage what you've got.
Well, that's the way everybody else has to do it. We get a certain amount of money, and then you do the best you can.
You're going to say, well, you mean you want us to be accountable?
Yeah,
you want us to
a noble concept.
Live in a budget.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're at. We're going to have an accountable government. That's the great thing about this new government. That's where we are in our Congress. We want fiscal accountability. We want to be able to balance our budgets and live within our means. North Carolina has to do it. Households have to do it. And we're headed that way in our federal government. Unfortunately, right now, because of Obama, we have about a $20 trillion debt.
Yeah.
And that's the big elephant in the room that we've got to address.
Yeah.
Are we still on, I know one of the most unpopular things, that was talked about during the campaign, but I certainly think is a good idea. Are we going to go back to, I'm all for renewable energy. It's great, but we got to have it now. We got to have energy now. Are we going to go back to maybe seeing coal miners go back to work in some places?
Absolutely. The regulatory burden, it's just killed the coal industry. The regulations that they put on, these folks in West Virginia and Kentucky and other states. But beyond that, we have the greatest resources in the United States to address our energy needs, greater than through liquid natural gas and oil, greater than Saudi Arabia. And so we need to be exporting it. But frankly, if we opened up our markets, if we could have the ability to pursue this, we could relieve Europe of their obligation to be dependent on Russia. Right now, about 35% of their energy comes from Russia. And so
we could be selling gas if we wanted to.
Of course we could be the greatest exporter in the world.
And
you can do it very environmentally safe.
Yeah.
It's there's a very efficient technology that allows you to extract this.
It's funny. I heard last week on television. I want to say it was on MSNBC. They said it was causing earthquakes. Was fracking. They think now it might be what's causing volcanoes to erupt. They'll say anything.
You can, I guess, drink Mountain Dew and have the same effect then.
Yeah, I guess so. But that's something that it's ironic that the coal industry is some of the poorest parts of the nation to start with, and when you shut down the only industry they have,
tragic.
It's horrible.
It's been devastating
for
those people. All right, if you would explain to us about the maps, because we can't seem to,
they're done on an Etch-a-Sketch.
Judge says,
I think
redraw the maps, and then another group wants the injunction to stop the judge from stopping it. I don't know. Where do we stand with it, and why do we keep going back?
As of today, our congressional map has been drawn. What's up for grabs at the moment is the state maps, the state house map, and the state senate. Those are the ones that the judge has come back and said, we want to take a look at those, that they're not drawn in an equitable way. Mm-hmm. Frankly, they passed, our Supreme Court, they passed the Justice Department, they passed our legislature, but there's a 3-judge panel, 2 of which are Democrats who are making these decisions. They forced the redistricting of my district. 2 weeks before our primary election, they came out and said, "Well, wait a minute, these districts aren't going to work." Here, I'd spent an enormous amount of money, several $100,000, reaching the wrong people.
Yeah,
and they told you 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before that you've got to start over again.
Man.
So I took on 6 new counties, 6.5, because only at the time only represented half of Union. Now I've got all the Union county, which I'm proud to do, and I'm thrilled to have it. Mm-hmm. But then we have 6 additional counties going all the way out 74 to Bladen County.
Yeah.
Been nice to know 3 months ahead of time, wouldn't it?
Right. So, the Democrats have a problem with it. Why didn't they have a problem with it back when they redistricted where Alma Adams and all that, her district looked like a snake that ran to the third of the way across the state.
Yeah,
Mel Watt's old district.
Well, it's, politics has an interesting way of causing water to run downhill. If they can't,
that's frustrating to the American people, really.
Well, it's a game.
If it's fair for the goose, it's fair for the gander, but that's not how politics works. If they couldn't
win a certain way, then they realign it. If they couldn't win in the legislature, then they're going to try to win the courts. And unfortunately, the court still had liberal Democrats who controlled it, and we need to be in a position now to address this.
Where does all that stand?
Well, I think they will have to redraw the house maps. Right now, they haven't made a statement that we have to redraw our congressional maps again. They've alluded to that. I would think they would wait till after the 2020 census, and then we would perhaps take a look at that again.
So they can change, but that was legal to change on 2 weeks' notice like that. That seems like that's something would have been.
Oh, it was legal to do. The judge made the determination it was legal, but it was very, very unfair to the voters in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Millions of Americans lack credit scores or have scores that are too low to gain access to affordable credit. The problem disproportionately affects young people, African Americans, Latinos, immigrants, many of whom can't establish a credit score without taking on debt. It's a double-edged sword. It's like, how am I supposed to build credit?
You can't get credit without buying something.
I can't give you this car loan for this used car because you have no credit. How am I supposed to get credit?
Well, that's the purpose of my bill with Keith Ellison. Mm-hmm. It's a bipartisan bill that I'm sponsoring with him. And this gives an opportunity for credit. People make mistakes in their youth. They can't get credit later on, and it hurts them. Mm-hmm. And so you can take your house payment. You can take the receipt from your utility receipt. All those things can show that you've been paying your rent. You're paying your obligations, and you can use that as a credit for your credit score. So it's a practical way to demonstrate that they've been responsible and accountable individuals and that they are worthy of credit. So it opens the door to people who deservingly should have the door open.
How hard is the I ask you this only because you served in a lot of different capacities in Congress and may have a little bit of insight into it, but I know a lot of the cabinet picks are going on now. Some of them are really popular, some of them are not. The one that seems to stand out the most is Tillerson. Do you have any just gut feeling about it? Is he gonna?
I think he's enormously capable. When you've worked in as many countries as he has, and you've negotiated with extraordinary success representing the shareholders of ExxonMobil, his interest now will be representing the American people. I think he's exceptionally capable. His eyes are wide open, as are President Trump's wide open. Nobody has to give an explanation to President-elect Trump on what the Russians have done in Crimea or what they've done in any of their provocation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just he understands it, and so does Mr. Tillerson. So I think you're going to see folks going in looking for opportunities to negotiate. Trying to get the Russians engaged in fighting ISIS. And ISIS is an increasingly an enormous threat. They're well-funded. I spend much of my time working to try to intercept the funding from ISIS. I chair a Congressional Task Force on Terrorism, and I'm vice chair of our Financial Services Task Force on Terrorism Financing. So that's really much of my job. And what we can do is intercept their money. ISIS needs about $2 to $4 million a day, and that's
they're into everything raising money. Even had a story about knockoff pocketbooks and stuff.
Oh yeah, they'll sell donuts.
Whatever it is,
selling donuts.
They're like any criminal. But see, whatever they control in terms of a country, they're in 35 countries now, and they may be losing parts of Iraq, but they're gaining in other areas. We believe that last year they had revenue of about $500 million, and much of that has come from oil that's been sold underground to the black market, extortions, selling antiquities, robbing banks, attacks, many ways. Frankly, I was in Latin America, and down there because they've built relationships with the drug lords to find money, as Hezbollah has been doing for 20 years. And so we're trying to prevent their financial expansion through the drug lords and their relationships.
How old is ISIS?
Well, it's really the Islamic State. And the Islamic State goes back to the 600s. Mm-hmm. But after World War I, they were really disbanded. They had aligned themselves with the Germans, and Ataturk disbanded ISIS at that time. And since that time, over the last 80 years or so, there have been many attempts to try to reclaim ISIS. But in July 29th of 2014, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi reinstated the Islamic State. And this is more than just an Islamic terrorist organization. This is a nation state, and their intent is world dominion. It's like communism, except much more aggressive.
It's a good comparison.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so this is, for them, the final battle. This is Armageddon, and they are committed to that. And so, as perverse as it is a real threat, and they've been highly successful through social media, engaging individuals all over the world to support them and be involved with them. Of course, they've traveled there, they fought with them.
It seems like it spread like wildfire just over the last 5 years, the last little, wildfire.
Well, it did, and it emerged out of Iraq because President Obama precipitously withdrew all of our troops, all of our intelligence officers, everyone to come out of the country. And from that vacuum, there wasn't enough stability inside the Iraqi army to support the war, and they needed direction. I mean, we have the best technology in the world. We have the best intelligence in the world. That alone, having enough resources there to guide them and to support their engagement, would have enabled them to control the country. And with the vacuum, ISIS was able to come in and take over. So now we have a very formidable organization, highly trained, highly equipped. This is not a backyard gang of hoodlums.
What do you think President-elect Trump is going to do about ISIS A lot of people are pleased with his pick of
Mattis.
Mad Dog Mattis.
Well, I think number one is going to be clear-eyed of our enemy.
Yeah.
President Obama wouldn't even call him an Islamic terrorist.
Know,
So first thing is know your enemy and identify your enemy. Right. Secondly, we will have significantly more resources on ground for intel. Mm-hmm. We need intelligence on the ground. All that's been withdrawn. We have a big bureaucracy at the CIA, but much of that needs to go out into the field, mm-hmm. and that's what's going to be reshaped in terms of the CIA and our intelligence efforts. Then we need to have a working collaboration with our partners. Right now, they don't trust the United States. Many of them are complicit, whether it's Turkey or Qatar. They've been working with ISIS. They've been working with terrorist groups, while at the same time supporting us, because they don't know where we're going to be tomorrow. They don't trust Obama. Right. Whether it's the red line in the sand, or whether the agreement he negotiated with Iran, or the pullout of the troops of Iraq, or frankly apologizing to the world for America. Yes. They don't trust this man. And so now we have a man who's like Ronald Reagan is going to put America first. And we're going to be strong. And strength, the greatest asset the world will have for security is for America to be strong. The world is more secure when we're strong. We saw that with Reagan.
What do you call it? Peace through strength?
Yeah.
Well, you look at the Soviet Union. We built up our military during the Reagan years. We put economic sanctions on the Soviet Union. We put Pope John Paul worked with us in terms of human rights issues. It put enormous pressure, sustained pressure on the Soviet Union. And what happened? They collapsed without firing a shot. Okay? Yeah. They collapsed. Yeah. We've done the opposite with Iran. Here's the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. And we have given them, by nature of this agreement, billions of dollars. We gave them $12 billion just as a precondition to go to negotiate to the table. And then, of course, they got $400 million. I represented Pastor Abedini and advocated for him for 3 years, and the White House asked me to go over there and to meet him when he got released. When he was waiting to be released, they kept waiting and waiting hour after hour. And finally he asked one of the guards, "Why are we waiting?" And the guard said to him, "Well, we're waiting for a plane to land." That was the money. That was the $400 million that came in cash.
Oh, yeah, and all denominations.
On the money.
So that's the wow. We will see strong leadership from the President Trump, and the world will then be willing to coalesce around the United States in a real plan. And we'll have a military plan to defeat them. We had a military plan to defeat the Germans. Part of it was removing their capacity for fuel. Mm-hmm. Well, President Obama hadn't even been willing to take out the convoys of trucks who were delivering the oil out of country into Turkey to be sold. Because why? He was afraid that there might be some concern over oil spills.
Mm-hmm. Weakness.
Well,
there'll be some bumps in the road. As we said, Trump is surrounding himself with good business people. There's going to be calls of conflicts of interest and stuff. And, I mean, it's hard to be the CEO of ExxonMobil and not have done business with half of these world leaders. I mean, that's just how it is. Yeah. So it's just kind of a new way of doing things, I guess. This whole group, none of them are career politicians, so it's going to be different.
But they're going to be very clear-eyed on the real world of where these countries are. Mm-hmm. And, it's in 2009, Putin said to Obama, this is right after Obama was elected, he said, stand down on your missile defense system in Poland and the Czech Republic. Do not put it up. So President Obama said, okay, I won't do that. Can you imagine Ronald Reagan saying, okay, whatever you want, I won't do that. And we need a missile defense system. Mm-hmm. But at that point, President Putin knew that he owned Obama. Yeah. And he got whatever he wanted from that point on.
Well, in the next day or two, tomorrow or the next day, he's going to release a cruise ship worth of prisoners when he does them last pardons. Is any of them in North Carolina? We know how many in our state are going to get turned loose.
Yeah, we don't know that yet.
We don't know that yet. For sure.
Pardoned or commuted the sentences of more people than the last 11 presidents combined.
Absolutely. Totally irresponsible.
Yeah.
I wished I would have loved to have had you here and I don't know where you found that story, but last week Archie found a story when all the talk was going on about doing away with the Electoral College, and Hillary won the popular vote and all that. It was staggering. I want to say she won. There were over 3,000 counties in the United States. She won 67 counties.
Yeah.
In the United States. And it was just so many people in those counties is what it ended up being. And that just, to me, was amazing to hear that.
There's a reason why the Electoral College was set up.
Yeah, you'd have New York, California deciding everything if
That's
that was,
right.
you know. It's amazing. Those numbers were staggering to me. How many counties he won compared to.
Exactly.
Compared to that. Well, listen, we know that you're glad the election's over and ready to get back to work, and, you know, you got new people now that you're working for.
And the main thing I want them to do is call me.
Yeah.
If they need help, we have an office now in Monroe.
Mm-hmm. I was going to mention that.
And
my passport don't get here soon. I'm going to call you. It's been a while.
We're thrilled with this
He's
office.
over here to call me.
Graham Long is managing this office. He's worked with me for over a decade, one of the most responsible people and helpful people that they'll ever meet.
Okay.
And they need to call our office and ask for support.
Where's the office?
The office is located on Jefferson Street.
Okay. Downtown.
And downtown. And they can call our office. It's 704-917-9573.
You must have had LASIK or something, because I never could see that.
704-917-9573.
There you
Call
go.
us. Let us help you. If it's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, veterans benefits, visas, passports, small business.
A lot of people don't
whatever it is.
realize that's what you're there
That's
for.
right.
We're there to help you.
If you get caught up in some bureaucracy or red tape, then the congressman wants to try to help you with it.
And tell your friends. We're going to have a card made up to give out to people, and that's what we're there to do. We've helped thousands of people process issues and problems that they've had with the federal government. It is a mess to work with them. What may take you a year or a year and a half or 2 years, we can get done in a matter of weeks.
Great. Always appreciate your time.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Glad to have you covering the whole county now.
Appreciate the mighty 1190. Y'all do a great job.
And we appreciate you and appreciate trying to keep an eye out for North Carolina and, you know, the people. And it's got to be a tough job because you got to be pulled in 100 directions all the time.
Yes.
One committee would be enough to serve on. You tackle a lot of stuff.
Well, that's what we're there to get the job done. And I love my job. I love representing the good folks here in Union County, and it's just a real privilege for me. So,
see, the problem with me is I don't think they don't pay you extra for all them other committees do this, so I just would want to do one, whatever the bare minimum was. Just kidding.
Frankly, I get up at about 5:15 every morning and get to bed about 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
And you don't stop all day long.
Yeah.
But it's great. I love it.
Appreciate it, Congressman.
Thank you.